That's the best feeling ever, taking off long socks after a long day and feeling all your leg. Then my leg hair goes up and the kids they come and touch it. And he's almost Bill Cosby now, apparently. So, yeah. So, Joe Biden's losing his mind. Like, this was funny for a while. This is like borderline abuse at this point, where they're just like, get out there, Joe. And he's just doesn't know where it did. There was a clip from a couple weeks ago where he's like doing an address on a live stream and he's reading it off his phone and he just turns and walks off camera while he's reading it and like has to be directed back onto the screen.
He forgot that he was on camera.
Yeah. Yeah. He totally forgets that he's on camera. He is not with it at all. I don't know what they're going to do with him. He's not with it. I found a funny video today. Let me see.
Did you see Jake Tapper scolding him about his cough?
I did not, but I would like to see that too.
He scolded Joe Biden about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's like a 2-minute clip of his like last 5 public appearances.
I look forward to this. I want to see what's up. Because I watched Joe Biden. Before we click, I'm skewed up at 0. Before we click play, I see these highlight clips, and he looks like a buffoon. And then I see him talk for 25 minutes straight on a debate stage or doing an interview. And those buffoon moments are just either they don't happen at all or it's 10 seconds out of 30 minutes.
I don't think he's a buffoon. He sounds like a buffoon. I think he sounds like someone who's having a real difficult grasp on knowing where he is and what he's saying and like early bits of dementia. But let's see.
All right, ready, set, play.
Good evening, everyone. And all Americans should be grateful to the Speaker's leadership and for Minority Leader Schumer's leadership. We're going to work in the direction of making sure that we make sure that everyone, in fact, has access to education. I'm going to endorse. I've endorsed the loss of that you would have, in fact, any doctor's bill you have. But even I can't do that for another a year between now and November, or actually January. They can't build any factories or anything within 1 mile of the estuary of the Delaware River and the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake.
He forgot.
And so the whole point of this is that we can do a lot to deal with endangered species. We have to take care of the cure.
They put an overlay, by the way, to fix that.
Worse, no matter what. Why doesn't he just act like a president? That's a stupid way to say it.
You know, Donald Trump was asked
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
No.
I just really hanging her out to dry.
Look at the guy. I don't know. It's like watching a yo-yo. I shouldn't have said it that way. It's like watching
that way. I want to.
We need to activate the reserve.
A lot of that was that giant delay they had.
The number of responders dealing with these crush of cases. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough.
The child, bring me the child.
We can make a personal protective equipment. Look, here's the deal. We have to do what we did in the 40s and the 20s, the 2020s, tending to our elderly loved ones. This is the United States of America.
He added the numbers.
Oh. Thanks.
That's his secretary.
You did good. You did good, honey.
Is that his secretary or his wife?
That's his wife.
His wife's like, Joe? And then he comes off the he is not with it at all.
I've heard though that he has a stutter, and that's a process. Like the way he pauses is a process of like
That's
I don't
true.
know, compensating.
He had a giant stutter as a child, and what's left is some of what you see. And you take those moments and you clip them together for 2 minutes, and he looks awful. But if you actually watch him for 20 minutes, he only looks bad.
Yeah,
I think they inject him with something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think they inject him with something for those debates. I think after that debate, whenever the fucking amphetamines have worn off, he's a wreck for a week, and then we don't see him for that period of time. It's like they're. Watch my video, the one at the bottom. CNN's Jake Tapper scolds Biden for not coughing into his elbow.
It's kind of reassuring because, like, if the elites actually
never mind. This is 6 minutes long. Fuck
flash.
this.
Oh yeah, I'm not watching a 6-minute video of him.
Yeah, never mind.
scolded.
Essentially, Joe just starts coughing, and he's like, "Mr. Vice President, you're supposed to cough into your elbow." I actually learned that from your administration, the Obama administration. He's constantly just. Trump's going to destroy him. Trump's going to destroy him in the debate. It's going to be embarrassing.
Yeah,
he's going to start stuttering. It's going to be bad.
This virus thing is helping Trump's numbers, like his approval rating. Like it's been good for him. Like I was surprised how high it was. 60% of people on a Gallup poll are approving of his handling of the virus thing, which is like, they probably could have done a lot more and shutting people down way faster instead of not. So I don't know. I mean, this is looking out. It's looking
Trump 2020. That's what's coming. What are you a Trump voter now, right? Yep.
I don't like any of them. Trump's numbers are better, but they still suck dick, right? And I feel like we always look at Trump's numbers through this lens of how much fucking dick they suck throughout his term. He has some of the lowest approval numbers of I was going to say non-impeached president. Like, he only competes with like Nixon and how bad his shit is. His numbers have improved. He is 50% disapproval and 45% approval right now, right? Taylor was referred to something different, his handling of the coronavirus, but his overall presidential approval and disapproval, 50% disapprove, 45% approve. That still sucks. No one gets reelected with those numbers, but I think Trump might. He's up against a really weak candidate, and we'll see how it goes. Also, it's really hard.
The question was,
am I a Trump
you're
guy?
a Trump voter now, right?
Not necessarily.
The Gallup poll,
not necessarily.
Like every poll is different, but the Gallup poll has a 49% approve of Trump, 45% disapprove.
It can be fact checked.
As of the Monday one.
Here's the adjusted weighted average of the recent polls.
I think what's most important to look at, Woody, is the fact that you are an educated, intelligent man, and you're fully aware of all this, and yet you're like, yeah, I'm a Trump voter. Let's not talk. That's why Donald Trump's going to win.
Yeah,
we'll see. So, did you see like the unemployment numbers? I don't know how consistent
it's going.
That's going to be.
3.5 million or something like that this week.
Yeah. Like the previous worst week ever in the history of America was 900,000, and now it's 3.5 million.
It's about to be rough. Global pandemic. It's just like, it's funny looking at our economy where it's like, so like 70% of people are paycheck to paycheck, and almost all the companies they work for are paycheck to paycheck, and apparently the government is working paycheck. Like everybody seems like they're about 9 days of inactivity away from collapsing. Seemingly.
Super frustrating.
Yeah. Because I worked for a big company like Cisco. They're not paycheck to paycheck. I should look up how many billions they have, but it'll be something like $45-50 billion worth of money in the bank. And I kind of forgot that other companies didn't have cash reserves. Like, to me, it's like all the bigums have like giant cash reserves, right? Yes. No.
Well, no. And the frustrating thing is you see a lot of people make fun of like Warren Buffett for sitting on, what is it, like 120 or $125 billion in liquidity. And then you have companies like the airline industry, where they spent 96% of their cash flow on stock buybacks. And I know the average person doesn't really take into consideration why stock buybacks are good or bad or anything, but you guys up on that far as the airlines or anything?
Maybe not as much as you. I
so here we are
right now.
Yeah. So essentially, for people who are listening that may not get it, what you do is, when your company makes X amount of cash, instead of reinvesting into the company and say, take Black Rifle Coffee as an example, because it's what I know, right? So all of our cash flow over the last few years, we reinvest in the company and scaling it. So we opened a roasting facility in Nashville, as well as the one in Salt Lake, distribution and everything else. So you're taking that money and you're reinvesting in the company. Well, what the airlines are doing is taking 96% of that cash flow and doing stock buyback. So it's putting buy side pressure in the open market against the stock price. And most of these executives get bonuses in stock. So when you're taking 96% of your cash flow and artificially inflating the value of that stock, you can take and sell your stocks on the open market for way more money and only pay 20% tax on it versus the 33 or whatever bracket you run into. So you're only paying capital gains tax on it. And the problem with that is when a lot of these corporations do that, they don't have any safety net. It's like I feel like the airlines outside of the 737 or 777 Max, whatever Max 8 or whatever that airplane is, outside of that, they could have floated this for 6 months if they didn't need to reinvest that money back into the companies. They could have floated that. And in my opinion, that's an example of poor leadership because they weren't planning for the future. They weren't protecting their employees. They were more worried about boosting the stock price than they were, protecting the company.
They knew they were going to get bailed out.
Except,
Yeah.
there's just pieces of that I don't agree with.
That's unfortunate.
Right. The reason the stock price goes up, according to me, is not buy side pressure. It's because with fewer outstanding shares, there are more earnings per share and the stock is worth more. Right. If I pay $15 or 15 times price earnings ratio, there's 100 shares out there and I earn $100 per total. Each share is worth $15. If I buy back half of it, each share is worth $30 because there's only 50 outstanding instead of 100. Right. That's how stock buyback.
But you're buying it in an open market and you're using the company's money to do it.
Right. Which is fine. Right. Because companies are under a legal obligation to reward the owners, right? If I said that these companies are taking the money and they're funneling it all to the employees and giving the middle finger to the stockholders, the people that own it, that would be corrupt. That's not how we work. What they're supposed to do is take care of the stockholders. I do agree with the part where you said it's short-term thinking, right? It's a failure in leadership because now they're over a barrel. They didn't prepare for a rainy day. And they've got their palm out looking for handouts.
They don't really ever have an incentive to prepare for a rainy day, though, because they know they're going to get bailed out every time.
It would seem so.
If I'm making a decision, I do exactly what they did.
Yeah. So
if there are two branches of history, and one of them is where they do the right thing, and one of them is where they do what they've done, the one that we're currently in, where they do what they've done and buy back their stock, is the one where they're much more profitable in the end. Their stock prices are higher.
But see, that's where I get frustrated. So to give you another case study is you take Blockbuster Inc. IPO'd in 1999, and it IPO'd it was a little under $450 million. In 2000, the co-founders of Netflix pitched them the company for $50 million. And according to one of the co-founders' book, the CEO of Blockbuster Inc. laughed them out of the room. In 2010, they filed for bankruptcy. It's like because the leadership didn't have the foresight in seeing what the consumers ultimately wanted and being able to adapt the business. And you take like the current situation right now, you see a lot of businesses like the food and dining industries shifting to takeout and delivery that they might not have offered it before. People shifting to e-com and stuff like that. And I applaud those companies for doing that. If they didn't have the foresight in doing that, or the agility and being able to adapt to that industry, man, you gotta let these other companies come in and take their place. It's like if Delta goes bankrupt, does that mean people aren't going to want to fly tomorrow? No. Like, okay, well, cool. Go auction those airplanes off. Let Warren Buffett come in there and buy the thing up for pennies on the dollar. I'm sure he'd like to make that a profitable business.
What if I told you the actual result of that was American goes out of business, United takes over and has a near monopoly in America, and they could charge anything they want? Like, what if that was the alternative timeline for letting someone else take over?
I think that one, United couldn't purchase those airlines. That would definitely bring on an antitrust lawsuit. But
I don't know. I've watched it happen with cell phone companies for decades.
It's true.
Now.
But you have to think that there are plenty of companies that are profitable out there right now, or people that have the liquidity that would step in and buy that because it's a proven business model. Like even some of the airlines now are adapting by being taking the airplanes and making them just a logistics transport,
right, for shipping and
FedEx and everything else. Yeah.
And it's hard to say.
The answer is to disallow the stock buyback with any money that they're getting from our government.
Well, like what he says, I don't completely disagree with that, right? Because you are taking the financial best interest of the stockholders and for doing that. But when you're so over leveraged by taking 90% or 96% of your cash flow and doing that, you're clearly not taking into account that you don't have an insurance policy if something does happen. What if they wanted to buy more stock into Boeing because they wanted to have some type of exclusive aircraft or something like that? It's like there's many different ways of reinvesting in your company outside of just buy side pressure to your stock.
And it's not even their fucking money. It's our money. That's not fair.
In this case, it's our money. And I think there actually are restrictions on stock buybacks, which there originally I don't think there were. But when the Democrats and Republicans started battling, that stuff got in there. They also put restrictions on laying people off. And I know for some of these, you give loans out. But if they keep people on the payroll, even though they're at home, the loans become forgiven. It's essentially grants.
Grants.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
So that's what they're doing. But the last time when they pitched the tax cuts, they told everyone, hey, if we just give your boss more money, I'm sure he'll give it to you. You're all getting raises. You're going to love it. You'll have so much money. You'll think
it'll
you've
trickle down.
Yeah, it'll trickle. You'll have too much money. And what they
Are you talking about TARP?
No, I'm talking about the tax cuts at the start of the Trump administration. And what they actually did is they used that extra cash flow to buy back stock. And it's in part why the stock market was rising. And rose. That's what I'm looking for. It's partly why the stock market rose, because they bought back their stock, and then each share was worth more, the same amount of earnings, or even more earnings with fewer outstanding shares. Price earnings ratio goes up, stock price goes up. That's basic. But it was kind of a lie to tell people that money was going to go. If I just cut in taxes for your employer, you'll get more cash. No, people's pay is based on the supply and demand for their talents, not how much your boss has.
So in a way, the coronavirus is going to raise wages by killing people. I see what you're saying.
That's outside. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
The coronavirus is a job creator. Not really.
It has